Glad to have Bob Shults. He's become a good friend and colleague, and really always enjoy hearing from Bob. So if you would have any questions during this talk, put them in the chat. He'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your questions. And I'm excited about this workshop. Yeah, I'm thinking he'll tell you a little bit of the background on why he's doing it. But this is a great topic. And I think it's the first time I've heard a formal workshop on it. So Bob, I'm going to just let you tell folks a little bit about yourself, and it's all yours.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. So job site safety for stormwater professionals. I definitely have obviously we all have a vested interest in this, in safety when it comes to our working life. And that's really the catalyst for this is to be able to, talk safety, and to, make sure that we have, we're in a safe environment at our workplace. But, the reality of the situation is that there's unique features to being a stormwater professional, to being an inspector, a QSP, a QSD, a water pollution control manager. And we want to, we really emphasize barracks trying to make sure that our staff is trained, and we begin all of our meetings with a safety topic. And frankly, the part of the idea behind this, I love supporting Stormwater Awareness Week and John and the WGR with this. And my thought process, the benefit to me is that this becomes an onboarding video for my new employees after I finish this, if I don't completely bomb. So anyway, we're going to move forward with this. Again, John is going to be on a part of this throughout. He'll be, please throw questions in the chat. If John sees something as I'm filibustering here, if he sees something that's topical or a question that comes up during the presentation that he may cut in, and hopefully I can answer your questions intelligently at the time, but also know that there is going to be a question and answer session at the end. We should have a few minutes at the end to be able to answer some additional questions as they come up and handle stuff in the chat. But feel free to raise your hand. Again, John will help to facilitate that and move forward. So let me get my presentation working here. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm Bob Shults. I'm a professional civil engineer. I'm the co-owner of Barracks Inc. So we were founded in 2010. We're a full service stormwater consulting firm. We provide document prep, program audit, review, SWEP inspection services for contractors, agencies, municipalities, developers. Along with SWEP and water pollution control program development, we also have inspection expertise. I worked in my previous life, which is part of where the safety emphasis comes from, is I worked for a heavy civil contractor where I was a project manager, general superintendent, estimator. And we also do some construction management projects on large scale mixed use master plan communities. So we do that as well. So again, and a lot of that background of the safety background comes from that time. I was a member of the safety committee at the heavy civil construction company I was with, and I saw firsthand issues that came up, safety issues that came up in a job where you're out there all day long around heavy equipment, and sadly things can happen and people can be injured. So it's a focus of mine, and I brought that to my owning Varix and working with my team. That, as I said, we want to make sure it's an emphasis and it's a focus. We start every meeting with a safety topic because it's critical. We want everybody to come home happy and healthy and safe to their families at the end of the workday. So a little more about me. I'm a QSD. I'm also a trainer of record. I don't do the QSD and P classes. I'd suggest that you call up John at WGR if you need to be trained as a QSD or P and take one of their classes. They're excellent. But I do have that credential, primarily in case something goes wrong on one of my job sites and there needs to be a focused QS tour trainer for one of my projects is the reason why I have that credential. I have certificate of completion of the Title 22 training, and I have the Water Pollution Control Manager 8-hour certificate, which I'm going to talk about for a second, kind of a plug for that, and the training I do for the 8-hour Water Pollution Control Manager training right now, and explain that a little bit in my seminar that comes up at 1 o'clock today, where I get into that great detail. So this is my website for stormwater compliance. Again, construction management, Caltrans 8-hour water pollution control manager training. If you have a need for the 8-hour water pollution control manager training, you go to my website, click on book training class, And just as another plug here, again, get into more detail this in my 1 o'clock seminar, where we go into the water pollution control manager training for Caltrans. But I have training classes right now available, and I do them in Sacramento in my office in Sac. I've got one in October 19th and December 7th for people can sign up for. But the critical one is next week on Tuesday. I'm going to be in Fresno. I'm going to be doing it in Fresno. I don't do Fresno classes all the time. This is a specific client that needs training in Fresno, and I'm going there, and I've got openings in my class on Tuesday in Fresno. So if you're in the Central or Central Valley, and that is more convenient than Sacramento, please consider signing up for my class next Tuesday. Okay. Moving on, and lastly, when it comes to that, Verix handles the database of all people who are trained in the state of California. So that if you ever are trained, that's where people look you up to find out if you're available, and we can now search by company or city so people can find you as a water pollution control manager in there. All right, on to the actual training now and what we're doing in the seminar. So job site safety for stormwater professionals. We're going to go over these topics, and they're all on a stormwater professional bent, on a focus for what we do in particular out on the job site as a SWEP inspector, a stormwater inspector, water pollution control program inspector on the job. Again, the focus is for people to understand that safety is the priority. People getting to work, having that work-life balance, and coming home safe to their families is what we're concerned about. So we're going to talk about company safety plans that everyone should have. We're going to talk about driving safety because there's a lot of driving associated with it. We're going to talk about remote projects and some protocols that we have at Verix and we would consider, or we would suggest people also put in place for the remote projects. We're going to talk about empty job sites and site access issues because when it rains, we're maybe the only people out there. Talk about heat and cold awareness, unsafe conditions, exemptions of the permit. We're going to get into those. We're going to get into some of the meat and potatoes of this is working around heavy equipment. With my background as a heavy civil contractor, I've seen that firsthand and I want to make sure people understand the protocols and what that operator is expecting from you as the inspector out there, and the things that you need to think about and think hard about when you're out there, because there is very little margin for error when you're working around heavy equipment. We're going to talk about site conditions and other things you have to deal with when you're walking around on these job sites as well, and we'll finish up with questions. Okay, so starting with a company and client IIPP, the Injury and Illness Prevention Program. So everybody should have one. All of your contractor clients will have one, and you should make yourself aware. Obviously, for your own company, you should have your own Injury and Illness Prevention Program. This is where you outline the things that you're concerned about from an injury and illness standpoint, and it also talks about discipline, other things that go on, making sure it's an emphasis. But this is an example of one from one of my contractor clients, with their table of contents and all the things they get into. And this is a large general contractor. So they go from bloodborne pathogens to all the other things, respiratory protection, safety training, everything that needs to be done in there. But in this one, I looked at several of these for contractor clients of mine in preparation for this seminar today. And the interesting thing is that this was the standard that was listed in both of the several of the ones that I looked at and used this exact language. Injury-free environment is the goal. Okay, live it. It needs to be a culture, and that is the reason why we start any of our meetings with a safety topic. It was something that I came from my time as a heavy civil contractor, is that you want to make sure that people understand it's not just lip service, okay? Living an injury-free environment is what the goal is, and that starts with culture. And if you don't emphasize it, and if you don't talk about safety besides the first day they show up at work, then it's really not culture, and it needs to be culture, because that needs to be the focus. And people need to realize that by talking about it every day, as you mean it, you live it, and you don't put yourself in a compromising situation or a dangerous situation in order to try and impress someone at your job or a boss. That is not okay. Okay. All right. So this is an example of a letter that was provided by one of our contractor clients to all of their employees, and it explains that culture from the boss. The thing that I wanted to pull from this letter and make sure I read to you guys: the personal safety and health of each employee of this company is of primary importance. Our objective is to reduce the number of injuries and illnesses to an absolute minimum and to foster and promote the concept of an injury-free environment. Okay. Employees who violate safety and health rules, orders, or standards, or expose themselves or fellow employees to safety or health hazards will be subject to disciplinary measures. So there's a carrot and a stick here. The carrot is we all want to get home safe. There's a stick too. There's discipline if you are found to be doing things outside of safe protocols. Okay. So now we're going out, we're professional, we're out there doing our job. The thing to know is that you have your own training. Hopefully this training is part of that. Your own training as stormwater professional and your emphasis, but know that your clients also have requirements that may go above and beyond. So it's part of knowing your jobs as you go from one job to the next, understanding what the rules of the road are with your client and making sure that you're meeting those requirements, because contractors take this very seriously. They may very well have a safety orientation you're required to take, or just rules in place that can get you kicked off the job if you don't understand that. So knowing that when you come to this job site, you're supposed to check in at the trailer, you're supposed to sign in, you're supposed to be wearing specific PPE that they require. So those are all things you need to consider. As a stormwater professional, you go from job to job to job. You may have different rules. You have your own rules and you have to be concerned with your own safety, but there may be additional rules that the client is concerned about and that you need to know and understand. So first day on the job, making sure you're checking in, knowing who you're checking in with, what their protocols are, making sure you're meeting those requirements. So here's a recent email that came to one of my staff. I'm sending this message out to all involved currently on this project to remind everyone you're required to check in prior to walking to the job site. Please check in at the office, sign what company in your company you visit, and sign out at the end. You also, project is in full swing. You're required to wear hard hats, no short pants, no tennis shoes. Workplace safety is important. And then they send it out, the same thing out to all of their them, and explain that if you don't have a hard hat, they have loaners in the office. So PPE, personal protective equipment, again, can adjust. You should have it and have a protocol in place for your own company, but you need to have it. So here's the email that just went out to everyone. Here is it in a nutshell. No shirt, no shoes, no dice, as Mr. Spicoli said. I may be, hopefully everyone's aware of that reference, but anyway, that is the case. You need long pants, sturdy work boots, shirt at all times, and then also, or all those things, long pants, sturdy work boots, a shirt, those are all parts of your personal protective equipment that are requirements. Okay, then the basics, right? Hard hat. Okay, need to have a hard hat, own a hard hat. We suggest wearing a hard hat on job sites. Most all job sites, construction active job sites, require a hard hat. If you take my class, you get these cool stickers too, saying you've been 8-hour trained. Safety glasses. Safety glasses depends on the job site, and it may be based on your company protocol, may be optional based on your company protocol, but again, should be a part of your kit as a stormwater professional, because there are many contractors that require safety glasses on their job sites. So you got to have them, and there are sunglasses may not meet the requirement for a safety glass. So then you got to have them. So it should be a part of your kit as a stormwater professional and your PPE. Orange vest is important and also a standard requirement on active job sites. So making sure you have an orange vest. Mackenzie here has her glasses, her hard hat, orange vest. And then there's other personal protective equipment, other things that can be included and required, as I mentioned. So in this case, we're doing sampling. Emery here is my model. He's got his hard hat on. The job does not require safety glasses. He's not wearing them, but he does require, if you're within 6 feet of the water for sampling, you're required to wear a life vest, which was issued by the contractor. So he's wearing his life vest there. Sturdy work boots, long pants, t-shirt. The life vest has reflectorized stuff on it, so it takes the place of his orange vest. Other things, obviously a rain jacket can be very important for stormwater professionals. So you want to get a rain jacket that has the reflectorized, that meets the requirement of a safety vest, ideally. Otherwise, you're going to have to wear a safety vest over it. Mud boots, muck boots, rubber boots are always good. Some contractors require gloves to be worn at all times. Some can even require things like Tyvek suits, fall prevention, hearing protection. All part of the PPE on a job site, and you need to understand what the rules are, okay? Driving safety, moving into driving safety. You are doing a fair amount of driving, whether you have a company vehicle or your own vehicle. You need to own and take responsibility for yourself and your vehicle and getting from the job sites. So just a kind of annual checklist. You need to be checking frequently your dashboard indicator lights, your vehicle lights, your tire inflation, your windshield washer fluid, engine oil. Your wipers obviously are really critical. This is the time of year right now, actually a couple of weeks ago, to make sure that your wipers are in good working order, because you're going to be out there in the rain events, right? Then every 3 months, other, belts, exhaust. Every 6 months, chassis, lubrication, wiper blades again. Same checklist as at every 9 months and 12, and checking your brakes alignment, those kind of things. So you need to have, in order to be obviously, to be a useful employee and a beneficial employee, you need to be able to get safely from point A to point B and job site to job site. So having a vehicle that is well maintained is really critical to that, and critical from a safety standpoint too. Having tires that are not worn, that have tread, and having a vehicle that's not going to fail you is obviously an important part of driving safety. We get into extreme weather. So, I mean, seems like it go without saying, but it needs to be said. We get into extreme weather. You need to understand working and driving in snowy conditions, heavy rain, slick conditions, because you're going to be out there in the worst of it, right? As a stormwater professional. Now, it's a year-round permit. You're going to be out there plenty of time when it's nice and warm and clear and beautiful. But in the wintertime, you're going to be out in it. When you may want to stay home, you're going to be out there doing the inspections and driving around on job sites. So understanding how to drive in extreme weather, giving yourself extra time, extra space between you and the vehicle in front of you, making sure your lights are all working and your wipers again are in working condition, and that you have good tread life on your tires. You are not expected to go out in four-wheel drive. We're going to talk about that, but the reality is that there's plenty of times you're going to be out there trying to get from point A to point B and dealing with tough road conditions. Know the rules of the road, understand that there's additional stopping time, and you want to have additional time between, or space between you and the vehicles in front of you when you're in tough road conditions, which you'll be in. Speeding, passing, and road rage. Okay, so don't get into this situation. This is kind of, again, it's something that needs to be mentioned, but you are not doing your boss a favor by driving 90 miles an hour between job sites in order to get that extra job site inspection in that day. That is not the intent, and it needs to be said to stormwater professionals. You're not a hero by breaking the law in order to hit that extra job site that day. So understand the standard speeding, the speed limits, driving the speed limit, giving yourself time between people, not doing dangerous passes, and staying away from your own road rage or other people's road rage, because you're not driving 90 miles an hour and the person's unhappy behind you. Just stay away. Don't engage in those kind of situations. A safety light is a standard operating procedure for us at Varex to make sure we have one of these safety lights. They're a very useful tool. They're a useful tool when you are needing to get off or on of a roadway, when it's beyond your hazard lights, and we're not going to get into great detail on that, when you have to get on and off the roadway in a position where it doesn't have it's not a signalized intersection or something like that. They're also very useful and should be utilized if you are driving on a job site. And moving through a job site to do an inspection and not walking a job site, having a safety light, having it on when you're driving around the job site, because when you're working on heavy equipment or driving around heavy equipment, visibility is key. Being seen is the number one thing that you need to be focused on. Okay, so safety light is a nice piece, kind of like PPE. Okay, four-wheeling, don't do it. Okay, I cannot emphasize this enough, and I emphasize this with my employees. You are not to put yourself in a position where you need to have four-wheel drive when you're driving to or around a job site, okay? This is unfortunate and very much a teaching lesson that happened with us, where we were out there. It was a remote project, and put ourselves in a bad position with a passenger vehicle and got off the road and in a bad spot. So the key thing is that I don't actually drive a four-wheel drive vehicle myself anymore, but I did for a long time. I had one when I was a contractor and everything else. And if you are ever in a position where you need to throw up a four-wheel drive, you shouldn't be driving. You should be out and walking. Okay. A lot of times in the wintertime, you're out there on your own. There aren't contractors out there, people that could pull you out if you got stuck. And so then you're stuck. Certainly don't want to be in a position like this where you're actually falling off the roadway and potentially down towards a drainage canal. So serious condition here, a serious unsafe condition that happened. But the whole point of it is, and we emphasize this, is that if you get a position when things are saturated and wet, if it's a roadway that's a good, nice rock roadway, you need to understand and think and be aware of the fact, okay, now it's raining. Now it's saturated. Should I be even attempting to drive out there, or do I need to get out and walk? You get out, you walk it, and then get back to your vehicle safely and get down the road. Okay, so don't do it. I mean, here's an example of a situation where a contractor, even with track-mounted equipment, can still get stuck, and with people there to help and everything else. This is a project we were on. They're out there with track-mounted equipment. It's a tidal area. They got so stuck they couldn't even get themselves out. The tide came up. So just not really a funny picture to them, but it's just an example of the fact that you just want to be very aware of your conditions and don't get stuck. Don't put yourself in a position where you could possibly get stuck on the job site. Okay. Moving beyond that, let's talk about protocol that we have in place for remote projects out of cell range. We call it the buddy system at Barracks, and something that we really suggest that people implement. So here's the situation is that when we go, we're going to job sites, and we are going to be going to a remote job where we do not have cell service. This is an example of a job. We had a job at Hellhole Reservoir, which is deep in the middle of kind of Tahoe region, between 80 and 50, way the heck out there. Literally it's a 2-hour from our home base. It's a 2-hour and 40-minute drive. And of that, an hour and a half of that is out of cell range. So when we go to a remote job site in the mountains or someplace where we're going to drop out of cell range, we have our employees take ownership, and they have a buddy. They have a buddy system that they're set up with. They take ownership of their own safety, and their expectation and the requirement is that they do that. And so as they're headed to that job site that day, they're checking in with their buddy before they lose cell service. Headed to Hellhole, I'm going to be out of cell service later this morning. I'll be out of cell service by about 10 a.m. Expect that I'll be back by 2 from the inspection. So that, and the purpose of that is that, we have a lot of employees, they're running around, they have their list of jobs they're going to in a day, and they may not be back in the office the next day. So we want to make sure that we have a check-in protocol in place. They check in before they leave cell service. When they get back from cell service, they're checking back in with their buddy. Made it back, on my way back to the office now, so that we know everything's good. So that buddy's job, so it's ownership by the first person who's going out of cell range to check in with their buddy and to check back in at the end of the day. And it's ownership by the person who is the buddy, who is back in cell range the whole time, that if 2 o'clock I still haven't heard from my buddy, then I'm calling them. Hopefully it's a situation where they just forgot to call when they got back into cell range. If they're not in cell range, 2 o'clock, then at 3 o'clock, we're calling again. 4 o'clock, we're calling again. And then we're calling in the search party, right? So the key is that we don't want to have a person that goes out, has some car trouble, has some issue, has an accident outside of cell range, and it takes us 2 days to realize the person's gone, or 24 hours to realize the person's gone and has had an issue. So it's a protocol we have in place, a buddy system for out of cell range work. So it's something we suggest for people who do that kind of work. The empty job sites and being aware. So this is here's the thing, and it kind of goes back into the no four-wheeling situation, right? You need to be aware, and we try and emphasize ownership when it comes to safety and all things when it comes for our technicians. But when you have a job, it's a year-round permit, you're out there constantly, right? You're going out there all summer long. You may have this beautiful gravel dirt road that goes out to the job site. And this is one of our job sites that goes out to, from a couple of years ago, goes out to one of the job sites that in the middle of summer, it's like a freeway. I mean, it's a good road, it gets you out there, gets you back. In the wintertime, it's going to be raining. It's the rainy season. The contractor's not there. You're having to access this project site, and that beautiful, hard gravel and dirt road that was great all summer, this is what it looks like in the wintertime. So you need to be aware. You don't need to be a hero. Now, this situation in particular, it was almost a mile drive out on gravel and dirt roads to get to the project site, okay? In the wintertime, we need to be aware of that, And we need to, one, preemptively be talking to your contractor about how are we going to access the job site when you're not here? How are you guys going to access the job site? Oh, we're not going to be there if it's raining. We're not going to be there until after the rain, and we can have a piece of equipment grade the road. Okay, well, how are we going to get there? And you have those conversations ahead of time. But knowing that even if those conversations don't happen, if you're not senior enough to do that, you should get out there, your technician gets out there, they need to know that this is not okay. That they don't try and, well, if I get a run at it, if I speed up to 40 miles an hour, I can make it through this mucky spot. That is not the thing you want people to do. And they need to be trained to not do that and to not take that chance. So much can go wrong there. They can get stuck, they can spin out and end up in a ditch. Lots of things can go wrong. But know that, okay, I got to get on the phone. I got to figure out how I'm going to manage this site. I need to, if I got to get out and walk and it takes me an extra hour or two to get this inspection done, it does. And then you get your boss involved and they can talk to the contractor. Hey, we need better access. It's a contractual issue that you may have to deal with, right? So those are all things that come up, but be aware of it. Understand that, one, we don't want people getting stuck. We don't want people putting themselves in dangerous situations. And you also need to try and be proactive about these situations with your contractor clients about how to get there and how you're going to get there and how you're going to managing their job on top of the other jobs you have to get to one day. And then really, really want to emphasize this. In the wintertime, you're going to be going to job sites, not all, but you're definitely going to be going to job sites where they're empty. They're empty job sites, and you need to be aware. This kind of goes to the buddy system situation as well, but you are going to be walking job sites where you're the only one there. So we emphasize with our staff, don't put yourself in a compromising situation. Don't put yourself in an unsafe situation. And they can come from different ways. These empty job site situations can happen, different reasons why there may be safety issues. It may be a saturated site where you're having to get out there and you're concerned about just being able to walk the site. It may be that you're up against a waterway and it's a steep slope. You need to be careful about not putting yourself in a situation there. It may be just something that's on the job site and you're the only one out there and you're uncomfortable. Unfortunate, just my example, pulling a picture, homeless encampments are a thing that we're all dealing with all of the time, and it can certainly happen on job sites. You get out there, you're the only person out there, there's a situation, a person that whether homeless or not, or someone that you're not comfortable because they're not a part of the construction team, they probably shouldn't be there. These are the kind of things where you get on the phone, you're talking to your supervisor and talking about whether or not it's safe or you feel safe to access the site when you're on your own and alone. And whether it's always erring the side of safety. Take a picture from the car, get on the phone with your supervisor, take a picture from the car and explain why you're unsafe to take the picture, and you're dealing with your construction team and the general contractor, talking about what it was that came up and why it was a situation or an issue for you and whether or not you have to make adjustments moving forward because of what's going on the job site and being alone. So just emphasize, be aware. Be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the situation, be aware of from safety and all kinds of other situations that can come up that could make you feel uncomfortable. And then you need to make sure you're talking with the supervisor about the best way to move forward. Don't just go, I'm a tough guy and I'm going to go out there and put myself and I'm going to walk past this person, sketchy looking person with a pit bull, something like that. Okay, moving on to heat and cold. Heat is really, cold obviously can be an issue if you don't have proper rain gear and you're out there and it's cold and it's raining, that kind of thing. You need to make sure you take care of yourself. Heat in particular and acclimating is a big deal. Back in September, here's a forecast for Folsom, 114 degrees. And acclimating is a real thing, especially, so this was in September. Most of us are used to the hot weather at that point, but still hydrating, making sure you're paying attention to your symptoms, if you're lightheaded, those kind of things, making sure that in the spring and early summer, this is really a big deal. You've been 75 degrees and out there doing your inspections all the time, and all of a sudden it goes to 95. 95 in the spring can feel like 110, and you can have serious effects to your body in the same as like 110 in the late summer. It's a real deal. Temporary adaptation of the body to work in the heat that occurs gradually when a person is exposed to it. Acclimatization peaks in most people within 4 to 14 days of regular work for at least 2 hours per day in the heat. So it's a real thing. Going out and working in the heat all day long every day you get to a point where you're acclimated and a 100-degree day doesn't hurt that bad. But the first days that it hits and you're 105 degrees and you're not used to it, you can have serious effects to your body. So keep that in mind when you're doing it, knowing all the basics of, hydrating, if you start to feel lightheaded, those kind of things, getting back to a place where you can cool yourself down and get comfortable, call a supervisor, talk about. Unsafe condition exemptions. So we're going to talk about this when it comes to the permit. So the general permit has unsafe condition exemptions when you can not have to do necessarily the sampling or the inspections because of these conditions. So they have them listed in the permit, but in my opinion, it's basically if you have an unsafe condition of whatever type, document it, and explain why it is you're not doing it. Here's a picture of a flood zone. Okay, so you were flooded. If it's pretty clear that if the road's flooded, if you were coming from the other side of this, if you were entering the job site, laser pointer, if you're entering the job site from over here and you can't actually access the job site at all because the road is flooded and blocked, in this case, obviously we were able to access from over here, but if the road's blocked and flooded, you take a picture of the flooded road, the road's closed, and you fill out your inspection report and say, I wasn't able to, unsafe condition, I wasn't able to access the job site and do my inspection due to flood, okay? But I'm able to access this job from this side. It wasn't closed until I got to the job site. So maybe I can't access my discharge points. If my discharge point is over here, I can't access it, but I'm going to take pictures and document it. I'm going to document the other issues that we had on this job because of the flood. And maybe I'm pulling back and sampling in a new location. But if I can sample, I'm going to sample. It's just I'm not going to put myself in an unsafe situation. And I'm going to document why I couldn't get to the normal sampling places. Unsafe conditions for extreme weather. I mean, this is I didn't have that many pictures of actually huge rainstorms. This is where my son was playing football in Oregon, and this is how the beauty of watching football games in Oregon sometimes. But anyways, and obviously unsafe conditions for extreme weather. You can't get there. The road's closed because of snow. You can have enough of a flood condition or enough of a rain condition that you can't get to a job site because of this extreme rain and you have to wait it out. So those are also exemptions. Again, document. Okay. Critters, I said critters in there. This is actually on my way to that hellhole dam job that we had a few years back. This little beauty, little kitty cat crossed the road in front of me. Now, it didn't stop me from going to the job site because it was on the way there. I rolled down the window and took a picture just because you don't see mountain lions every day. But if this little cat was in the middle of your project site, you're obviously take a picture, stay in the car, and move on, right? Machine guns. So this is one of those, again, this isn't in the permit, but I feel very confident that this is an exemption of an unsafe condition. We're out at Beale Air Force Base. Our job site is out here off the horizon. This is our only access road. We show up to do an inspection during a wet weather event, and there's a barricade across the road. The barricade says, danger, machine gun firing in progress. Do not enter for access, contact so-and-so. We took a picture of this. We obviously were not going to go beyond this. We took a picture of this and included this picture as our explanation for why we did not do the inspection that day. Okay, heavy equipment. Jumping into heavy equipment now. I'm going to go through this and talk about the keys about heavy equipment. So just to go through terminology for some people who aren't as educated about what the equipment is, you hear people talking about equipment all the time. This is a scraper. A scraper is used for moving dirt and heavy amounts of dirt. Very large piece of equipment. Obviously, I'm 6'4", the tire is bigger than me. So this is the kind of thing, you are not less than a speed bump to one of these. You need to be seen when you're on the job site. A dozer, this is what a dozer looks like. They're used to push those scrapers and push material. Motor grader or blade, you see these around, they're used for fine grading, finish grading of rock and dirt to certain grade points. An excavator, they come in all shapes and sizes from mini X's to huge mining excavators for loading out trucks. Compactor, these are compactors. This is a sheep's foot compactor. Those spikes on the wheels are basically what's considered the sheep's foot portion of the compactor used for compacting ground. Off-highway trucks or ukes. So a lot of, especially in rocky conditions, a lot of off-highway trucks are used to move dirt. So you're loading out these huge mining dump trucks with material, moving it to the other place. Again, not a lot of visibility. The driver is over here on one side. This is a huge piece of equipment. My head would be probably up to the edge of the rim on this piece of equipment. So a massive piece of equipment, massive excavator. Again, excavator operators, limited visibility because they're on one side of the stick. Same thing. This uke driver is over on one side, has a lot of blind spots here. So again, be seen. So they're called off-highway trucks. People call them ukes for short, because one of the original companies that built these things was Euclid. So that's the reason why they're called ukes as well for short. People referring to them. A backhoe has a front end loader and then a trenching hoe device on the back end for trenching. They're moving material. A skip loader, again, front end loader with a box on the back for fine grading. Grade all, these are used a lot. Vertical construction, obviously, they have articulating wheels, so their ability to get into tight places and able to forklift material up into high places and move materials around, used for material moving primarily. Again, have visibility issues because when the grade all stick is down, it can hide, make it so people are missed. So again, so heavy equipments, haul roads, and getting around, something to really talk about. So when you're moving around, when you're doing construction or working and moving, especially on these large mass grading projects, this is one of those ukes going by. And they have haul roads. There are haul roads on job sites that they are bladed and created, so these guys can haul, but with a huge load. These things, the thing to know about these trucks and these off-highway trucks or any kind of a dirt moving operation or large heavy equipment operation, the rules of the road don't apply. This guy has the right of way always, okay? Your job is to not get in their way. Stopping one of these things when they're going 25 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour is like stopping a train. They don't stop on a dime. Okay, especially when loaded, but at any time they don't stop on the dime. And it's all about, for the contractor, making money as getting that dirt from one place to the next as fast as they can and getting it dumped. So they sincerely do not appreciate you making them slow down, making them get out of the way, you being in their way. It is not okay. And that's a good way to get kicked off of the job site. Okay. So you need to, when you're working around heavy equipment, the main thing is to be aware, observe what's happening, see what's going on, and then see how you could stay out of their way. If you're driving because it's a large job site, again, on a job site like this, you should be checking in with your client. Do you want to tour me? Do you want to take me? Do you want to drive me around because of the equipment? Or I know I've been here several times. You've toured me once. I'm going to point A, from point A to point B. I'm only driving across the haul roads. I'm not driving on the haul road. You want to stay off the haul road if you're driving, and you need to go by. So understanding, anytime you're working on heavy equipment, you need to know what's happening, where it's going, and stay out of the way. Again, you're less than a speed bump to these. Even in your F-150, it's just bump. You do not want to you will lose every time with these things. Okay, so understanding the job, being aware of the job site conditions are really critical. So here is a back and forth that went on recently on one of our jobs. Going forward, inspection reports need to have photos taken of the areas called out and swept. The owner specifically mentioned the following: river headworks, stage area near DL3 and DL2. This came from our client to us. Our response. I do want to note the past week or two, I've been doing my inspections. I have not been able to photograph DL01 or 03 due to frequent crossing of heavy machinery. I was told I could not enter that far. So during inspections where I was unable to hit these locations, I will just let you know and try to hit them the next time. So this is in the middle of summer months. It's not critical that we get to DL103 and get right up in there. So we're having a back and forth with the contractor about it because of the particular amount of cross traffic and heavy equipment that's happening in that area is not an unsafe. And she did the right thing. She was checking in with her foreman, her superintendent from the contractor that day. And that's the reason why it wasn't happening. The answer from the contractor, not a problem, Ronnie, safety is more important than photos, which is absolutely true. Okay. And this is a good interaction. Now, if it's in the rain event, if we do need to access those areas because we haven't been there in a while, or there's a concern from a stormwater standpoint, then hey, the contractor is going to need to accommodate. So I'm not saying the contractor is going to say it's unsafe, you can't go. If you need to, great. But in the middle of the summer months, it's a big job and you're not able to access a couple of points for safety reasons. It's not, as long as you can get it the next time or the time after that, and they can work with the contractor, that's okay. Okay. Heavy equipment, eye contact. Okay. Big, like cannot emphasize this enough. This is the most important thing when you're working around heavy equipment, in my opinion. Okay. You have to make eye contact. You do not assume that this piece of equipment won't hit you. If you do not get within the reach of that stick or that counterweight on this excavator unless you have made eye contact with the employee, period. Okay, so you have to be patient. If I'm walking or driving, in this case, we were driving. We needed to get past on this access road. We stopped out of the range of that stick. And as we were watching this person, he was turning left to here and turning back right, turning left, turning back right, turning left, turning back right. At no time did his stick actually go out over the roadway, okay? But you have to assume that the one time when you're gonna drive by is when he's gonna swing a 360 and take you out. And again, a passenger vehicle to a 390 excavator is nothing. It's just like, it's nothing. You would be flipped over and toast in a heartbeat. They are very, very powerful pieces of equipment. So, and it can be the smallest mini X. If you're going to be within the range of their stick, you have to make eye contact before you do that. These guys are used to it. The operators are really good. They understand safety. They have safety protocols in place. They're having tailgate topics every day. They're used to it. So they should not get annoyed with you having to go past them. They understand you're there to do a job. You wait patiently, make yourself visible, and then wait for eye contact and wait for a wave before you move past. That is the #1 requirement when it comes to working on heavy equipment, and it must be done because you cannot put yourself in a bad situation. So we're sitting here parked, he unloads his bucket, turns the rest of the way, gives us a wave, and he stays right where he is and lets us go by. That's how it works, okay? That is a great example of making eye contact. And again, on any piece of equipment, water truck, scraper, grader, any of those things, grade all. Same thing. You need to get by, you need to stay out of the way, you need to make yourself visible, and you make sure you make eye contact, you get a wave, then you go, okay? So just the last couple of slides here, and then we'll get into questions. Site conditions, there's a lot of walking that needs to be done. You need to have those sturdy work boots, and you need to be aware of your conditions. Think about how you're going to get from point A to point B, and you need to be paying attention, eyes up, looking for equipment, but eyes down and looking for rocks, places that you're going to turn your ankle, holes, those kind of things. Be aware of your conditions, be aware of where you are, understanding that you have to be able to get around on uneven ground to be a stormwater professional. Trenches and excavations are one of the most common issues that come up on job sites. So you have trenches and excavations. Know this and make sure you emphasize this to your employees or other people. Don't try and be an athlete and jump a ditch, okay? It is not necessary. Find a safe access point. The contractors have to have safe access points. They have to have ladders to get down in trenches. In a situation like this, you might have 100 feet before there's a place where the trench is filled in and you can cross safely, then that's what you do. If there's an opening and it's safe to climb down and climb back up, fine. Never jump. Never jump a hole, okay? So much can go wrong. Soft tissue injuries, those kind of things. If someone who is a super athlete, I don't care. Don't do it. Be smart. Be careful where you're walking. Trenches and excavations are something that come up a lot, and you need to be prepared to walk around, get to where you get in a smart way, in a safe way, okay? Site conditions, saturated ground obviously is something that we deal with all the time. You need to think about if you have mud boots, those kind of things. Don't put yourself in a position where you're in a slope. One, you don't want to cause damage that's going to cause erosion and cause other issues. You know, find the high point or a point to stay out of the most saturated conditions if you can, to go down and get your samples. In a safe, be careful about slips and falls. Obviously, in these situations, you have to be careful. Flowing water. Flowing water, this is a place where we're doing some 401 sampling. So flowing water is obviously a concern. They had a safety protocol requiring us that we're within 6 feet to wear a life vest, but also a lot of times with flowing water, you're trying to get a sample out in the flowing water. And so you have to be close to the edge, but you need to be careful about how to do that. A lot of times you're on a steep slope, a bank. You need to be careful in making sure that you have good footing in a safe place so that you're not falling. So, okay, that timing wise, we got about 10 minutes left. So just want to open it up. I think we had some questions. I'll get John to kind of come back in and kind of help facilitate this. But we're at the end of the stormwater safety for stormwater professionals. Again, you've got my email address here and my phone number. If something comes up or a question I can't answer before the end of our time today, feel free to give me a buzz. I'm happy to do that. But there we go.
Okay, excellent. Great presentation. So we've had a few comments and questions. One of them was just reiterating something you said about a QSP showing up at a site with shorts and flip-flops and a hard hat, but no vest. Obviously that's not acceptable. And so they left, fortunately, before they got kicked off the job. You were talking about safety lights, the flashing lights. Mm-hmm. Is that actually a requirement on Caltrans projects?
No, I mean, it depends on where you're going and everything else. It depends on the protocol of that job, but no, it's not a requirement that you have one unless you're utilizing it on. I mean, if you're going to go there as a stormwater professional, you should be able to park like anybody else that's on the job site and then access the job site by foot if you need to. So okay, I just wasn't sure whether there was a requirement there.
Mel was also commenting about the importance of really watching the ground where guardrails have been removed and leaving holes. Mm-hmm. And also I will mention too about why not to walk on erosion controlled mats, because many times you can get some pretty severe erosion happening underneath those mats that is hidden completely from view.
Agreed.
Okay, let's see. I've worked on heavy construction sites for decades. This is very good and thorough presentation. Thanks. And I'd add under critters, wasp and yellow jackets. Yes.
Absolutely.
In fact, I had a coworker who in a remote area had stumbled upon a wasp nest. And he had the presence of mind to radio for help, and because he got attacked by hundreds of them, and so had he not radioed for help, he would have succumbed, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And then ticks. Yeah, when you're walking through grassy areas, this year alone, I've had 2 occurrences where I found ticks on me after doing a QSP inspection.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, the focus is to trying to, don't put yourself in an unsafe situation to document, but you want to try and document those situations so that you don't, you're not obviously not a fraud for not being able to do a portion of your inspection or finish your inspection or do an inspection because of something like that that's outside of the norm of an exemption. You document it, but don't put yourself in an unsafe situation to document it, obviously.
Yes. Mel comments that with heavy equipment, it's his opinion that eye contact's not enough. You should use hand waving. And you mentioned that, Bob. You need to have some sort of acknowledgement of your presence.
Absolutely, yes. Eye contact is not enough, and I apologize if that wasn't clear in the presentation. Eye contact and being seen is the first step, right? You need to be seen. That's the reason why we wear the PPE. That's the reason why we have the hard hats and the safety vests and all that stuff. Being is the reason why we have a light on our vehicle. But that is not enough. Okay, yeah, I think he sees me, right? It needs to be a clear wave, and that was in the video, and it may have been hard to see. We waited until we got a clear wave through with our vehicle. And then same thing, and more, as important or more, when you're walking the job site, again, a clear wave, they stop, and then you go. And that is, and you're giving them the thumbs up. You're going, I'm going that way. I mean, you're using your own hand signals. I need to go that way, pointing to where you need to go. They wave you through, right? Then you go. So yes, eye contact and feeling like you have eye contact alone is not enough.
Right. And Mel did confirm that Caltrans does require safety lights if you must park within 8 feet of traffic. Yeah, you're right, Bob, that you should be able to find a place safe to park.
Yes.
But we do have some elongated Caltrans projects that you have to be within the cone zone and fairly close to moving traffic. Yep. I highly recommend the lights. Absolutely. All right, Graham says, great presentation with lots of good examples. Thanks, Bob. For flowing or deep water situations where it's otherwise safe to proceed with sampling, are we required a second person for sampling? Also with a personal flotation device or life jacket and equipped with a rope throw bag, they remain on the safe area of ground close to the water where they can deploy the throw bag if need be. What's your thoughts there?
My thought is that, if you go into the injury and illness prevention plans, one of the things that comes up at a lot of them is having a particular job task plan. So what we're talking about there is a more specific job task plan. So in the picture that I had of Emery taking the sample where he has to be driven, and this is part of that pre-task planning.
Yeah.
That happens. We're always on that job site. We're accompanied by a contractor. We have that very nice level safe area in that location to be able to take our sample, and their requirement in that situation is general requirement is within 6 feet of the water, you need to have a life vest on. But then adding to that, being smart, and this is part of the ownership and bringing your staff in, you can have a written protocol that says anytime you're within blah, 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 this water or that water, you have to have a rope, okay? But you can also have, hey, we are constantly emphasizing and putting ownership on, when we get into a situation that is an unsafe condition, what are the protocols? Some of it may be dictated by the general contractor, which it sounds like that's kind of what we're talking about, and with that good example, where you got to have a rope, you got to have the second person. It depends on the situation you're in, the type of water, how fast flowing it is, those kind of things. So I don't have a direct, this is what you do every time. It's more of, okay, now today, 90% of the time we're out there, we're doing our inspections of a job site, and a lot of that was covered in this presentation. Now we're working very steep slope, very fast moving river. Let's create a task for this. Yes, we need to have 2 people. Yes, we need to have a rope. Yes, we need to have this or that, right?
Yeah.
And we've been in situations, I'm sure you have, John, where you need to take a boat to take the sample, right? Yeah. And if you're going to get in a boat, there's definitely going to be some additional requirement.
Yeah, PFDs.
Yeah.
And I think you just answered JB's question. Are there certain situations where you find it advisable to have 2 inspectors? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Let's see. Back to Burton. He had a question. What level of safety training do you provide your inspectors or staff, and how frequently do you hold the training? I think you were saying that before every meeting.
Yeah, I mean, so we have our own injury and illness prevention plan that everybody has to, is onboarding part of it. This, which I feel like has gone well, is going to be something that I'm going to require my staff to watch. And then we have lunch and learns internally at my firm once a month to a month and a half, depending on the time of year. And we start every one of our staff meetings with a safety topic. So much like the general contractors do, where they have their tailgate topics once a week or more often, we're at least having one formal meeting a month and a half. As we have our normal staff meetings, we always start with a safety topic, and we're talking about just these kind of things. This time of year, we're going to start talking about, in our next staff training, which is next week, we're going to be talking about winterization planning, which means we're going to be talking about winter and water and wet sites and not going four-wheeling on the job site.
Right. Yeah, and I know I'm going to be telling my staff to watch this. So, just a note: this is going to be linked onto the Stormwater Awareness Week website. Any of you viewers, if you want to show this to your staff for your next safety meeting, you have access to it, and you can actually get the YouTube link and use that. So, yeah. All right. Chris says, great presentation, Bob. One note to watch out for are sharps, and he says needles. That's a great comment. Yep. I found one in a storm drain while sampling, and there's other sharps like sheet metal and demolition materials that you can snag your calf on. You really got to watch for those sharps.
the reason why that there's, rebar have rebar caps. I mean, I've back in my previous career in heavy civil, I mean, that's the reason why they're required to have rebar caps. But that when you have rebar sticking up, it's an incredibly dangerous thing. You slip, you fall on one, you get in bed, you can get impaled. So it's a reason why you're working around rebar, you're working around anything that's metal and has sharp edges like that. Absolutely.
And with all the biohazards now associated with homeless and the amount of homeless on projects, especially Caltrans projects, wear your gloves. Definitely wear your gloves. Bring hand sanitizer, decon if you're in an area where you feel like there could be a lot of biohazards in the water that you're sampling.
Right.
Yeah. Another comment just about flashing amber lights. That's required if you're going to violate a normal vehicle code provision or to work in it within a public right of way. Let's see. We got a few here. I've got just 5 more minutes here. Will it damage your tires if you drive over heavy track out control grates and rocks in an entry exit of a job site?
I suppose it's it's most people don't like doing it with their personal vehicles, but you also don't be the stormwater professional that drives around the construction entrance and tracks out. Okay. So, it's possible for it to happen, but the reality is situation that's what they're meant for, to be able to drive over them. Go slowly. If you have good tire wear, you should be fine driving over those grates. But
odd things happen. And again, another reason why not to do 4-wheel driving or go into vacant sites. I had a nominal rock, nothing's overly sharp, go right through my 4-wheel drive tire, and it was in good shape. So weird things happen.
Yes.
Let's talk about driving along a sloped embankment. And also, one of the questions I want to bring up is walking along a sloped embankment. We've had projects, you probably have too, that are very steep, and going uphill is not a big deal usually. I mean, it might wear you out a bit, but it's coming back down that gets pretty scary. We actually will require, as part of our PPE, walking sticks, hiking sticks for certain projects. Yeah. What's your thoughts on either driving or walking on steep slopes?
Well, I mean, again, it's finding, your protocol or this kind of goes back to having a pre-project or a project-specific protocol when it comes to this. And this is part of the culture that I wanted to emphasize at the very beginning. It needs to be part of the culture, and that's the reason why we start with safety and everything else, is that you just don't want, you're going to have people that are less experienced. You're going to have people that think of themselves that like they're, a super athlete and they can do this and that, right? So, but to understand that it's okay to ask, say, hey, I've been doing this. I go to all my job sites, but this one I've got to climb a straight uphill, right? And so it's like, okay, well, let's get some walking sticks to make that easier and safer for you to do, right? So this is part of that ownership of not having someone that goes out to a job site for the first time and thinking, well, I guess I'm not supposed to, I guess this is just the way it is, and I just have to tough it out, right? That's not what we want. Yeah. We want people to ask when they don't know and have a conversation. And it may be, yes, that's a tough hike, but there's nothing unsafe about it. There are switchbacks, but there isn't. No, we don't want you driving your car where that job's gonna take longer to do an inspection on. It may be that conversation where it's like, wow, I didn't realize that was the situation. Let's get a supervisor out there with you. Stop what you're doing, take some pictures, text them to me. It's that, again, the culture is stop, call, figure it out, get someone who has more experience to help you to make the right decision. And don't just go, well, I guess I just have to, the only way to do this is to climb this vertical rock face, right? And they do it. And they take a picture and come back and see you at the end, and they go, look what I did today. They're like,
well, and how many times have you climbed a slope and realized I got to go down that now?
Yeah. Right.
And you end up going down on your butt, So you brought up something really good too, is for us supervisors, don't send a newbie out on really hard jobs like that without going out with them and teaching them that culture.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, this has been wonderful. We're just about out of time. So you have your contact information up there. If people have questions, they can get a hold of you. I've loved this presentation. It's been really good, very much needed. So I will definitely be sharing this, and hopefully our viewers will be too. All right, Bob, thank you so much. Thank you to all of those that attended, and hopefully you can join us for another workshop later today or this week.
Thanks, everybody.